Hi there, this is Alejandro Millalen from Syniti. In this video, I will focus to create a change data capture replication using Azure Data Lake as a target system. We will cover each configuration aspect, starting from the architecture and requirements on the Syniti Replicate server, how to set properly an Azure Data Lake environment, and we will recreate a replication covering all functions provided by Syniti Replicate. Just a quick introduction. Syniti Replicate supports Azure Data Lake Gen 1 and Gen 2 only as a target system in two data replication modes. In refresh, which is our snapshot process, and in mirroring, our change data capture approach. As you can see, Syniti Replicate provides support for multiple systems as a source, also as a target. And this is great because you have full flexibility to move data from any relational database, analytics, and big data system, either if those are on-premise or in the cloud. In terms of architecture, Syniti Replicate must be installed on Microsoft Windows Server. This system will be responsible to capture transactions on the source and post those transactions on Data Lake. Let's take a look into the Syniti Replicate server. This system could be a Microsoft Windows Server 2016 or higher. You have to check that you have installed .NET Framework version 4.8 or higher. How much memory, number of processor and storage will be depend on your replications needs, number of tables, transactions, and number of source systems that you will replicate to Azure. But you can start with a quad-core system, 16 GB in memory and 100 GB in hard disk. To establish the connectivity with Azure, you need to create a connection via .NET. The information about the driver use and how to get it are detailed into our user guide. You need to make sure to copy the right files into the right folder. In my demo, Syniti Replicate was installed under the path C drive, program files, Syniti, Syniti Replicate. Under this folder, you need to open the plugin folder. Here, you need to select which will be the version for the data lake that you want to use, Gen 1 or Gen 2, and copy the files on the right folder. If you want to use both, you have to copy the proper drivers into both folders. One additional step is needed if you want to use Parquet serialization in Data Lake. So let's set our Azure Data Lake service now. I assume that you already create a resource group and a Data Lake instance. So I'm going to click on Azure Active Directory, select App Registration, and I'm going to register a new application. I will enter the name Replicate. I will leave the support account type by default, and I will register it. Once we complete this process, we will be able to get some required information. The client ID is here, and the tenant ID as well. We need to create a secret key now. Click on Client Credentials, click on New Client Secret, and I will add a description. I will leave this expression by default. Here, we have the secret key. Copy this information into a safe place. We are almost ready. We need to provide just authorization to our application to get access to the Azure Data Lake. Let's go to our storage account and the Data Lake access control. Let's add a new role assignment, and we will assign a storage account contributor and a storage blob data owner to our application calling Replicate. Now we can create our Data Lake connection into the Management Center. Let's select the right target from our list, and we need to add our connection properties. The first item is a local path in your Replicate server. Here, Replicate will store the output files and the schema information. I suggest to create a new folder in your system and use it only for this function. Then, we need to add our information from our data lake. Client ID, tenant ID, client secret, storage account name, and target field system name must be entered. The target field system name is the container in Data Lake. you can run a testing to check if the connection is working. We have additional properties that could be set here. You can decide to add column names or transactional information into the files. And you can decide which could be the location in those files. With Syniti Replicate, you can store your data in two formats, as CSV or Parquet files. You can set your columns and string separators if you are using CSV, and you can select which compression method wants to use with Parquet. gzip and Snappy are full supported. If you have multiple tables in a group and you want to store the data, all of them, in one file in Data Lake, you have this option available. I will complete the wizard and I will select my source table. For this demo, I will use SQL Server. As this video is focused on the data lake, I won't focus how to enable the transactional mode for this system. Keep in mind that the target table creation is not a physical table in the data lake. It's just a way to represent the mapping process from the source to the target system, internally in the management center. The last step is to create the replication. In this process, we will define the time interval to read logs in SQL Server. We also can define our mapping rules. Filtering, conditions, and small data transformation functions are supported in Syniti Replicate for Azure Data Lake. Syniti Replicate provides a monitor, which provides real-time information about your whole replication process. As you can see, Syniti Replicate creates the first file in Data Lake. This one contains all current data stored in our customer table in SQL Server. As our replication was set in mirroring mode, every insert, delete, or update coming from SQL Server will be replicated in near real time to Azure. So let's check that. Our replication monitor shows that one transaction was executed. Let me refresh the data lake. Now we have a new file, and this contains information about the update operation done in SQL Server. Can you believe how simple it is to set a connection in Azure Data Lake? If you want to know more about replication, visit syniti.com.